Hello again, everybody. This is Amorgin, and you're very welcome back to another episode of Star Trek Fleet Command. And so, guys, we're all waiting on this this big update on the 20th. A couple of days to go. All the content creators are out there, flat out getting their pieces together, all ready to start posting and publishing those videos on the new update and the new features coming into the game. We've already done our speculation piece on it, guys, and if you want to check that out, go and check out the last video that we done looking at the G4 stuff. But right now, guys, I want to get this piece in before all of that happens. It's going to be a very busy time for the content creators over the next week or two. I'm going to be sitting with you guys waiting to see how it all unfolds, and I'll do my piece afterwards. I won't be one of the first out spamming out the videos, competing with all of the other guys to be the first man out with the information. I'll be sitting back with you guys in the trenches waiting to see how it unfolds and doing a commentary and an opinion piece on that when it happens. So we look forward to that in the next couple of days. But like I say, I want to get this piece out first, and I want to give a big shout out to Thaylor. Thaylor is one of the main contributors on my YouTube channel. He always has an insight and an opinion into various different aspects of videos that I do. He's one of those guys that's out there in the community that does a lot of their own little bits of homework, and he's posted a couple of detailed ideas that he would like to suggest, I suppose, for Scopely going into the future. It's unlikely that any of these kind of ideas are going to be grabbed and actioned anytime soon, but it's very worthwhile to look at these pieces like this and maybe throw out some ideas to Panic and Scopely and the guys. So I'm going to try and do a quick run through of this and invite Thaylor in the near future to go through it in person. He can challenge me back on any of these pieces. I'm going to be brutal enough at times, hopefully, and I'm going to be giving credit where it's due, hopefully, as well. And we look at these ideas, and all of you guys, as always, stick your comments down below, give it a like and all of that if you like it, or come and join us in Discord and chat with us there. So we'll get straight into it here, guys. So, guys, the first set of ideas here coming from Thaylor. Number one in his list is allow us to protect our minor like we do our station and other ships. A nice little idea, not something I would have considered before. I don't know if that's actually a good idea, given that it's a war game, given that it's based around PvP at times. But an interesting idea nonetheless. Move on with number two there. When in warp, make the recall button a return button. Now, this is definitely one I would have had on my list for suggestions for Scopely. I would rank this much higher than number one. This has been called for a number of times in the community to allow us to recall the ship when in warp. Something the guys need to really get working on and allow us that option, because we all know how frustrating that can be when we're out and we have a long journey of like 10-15 minutes ahead of us, and then we change our mind or something's going on and we need to recall that ship, etc. So definitely number two there is high on the list. We move on. He says, if not number two, then when you warp, use the recall button as a stop button and dumps you off the next system. Now, I think that the problem with that, this has been discussed before, like I say, the problem with that one seems to be that there is no in-between location for your ship when you send it to a destination. It's basically the time in between, the transit time is not, the ship's not actually physically traveling, it just goes from one location to the other. So that's my understanding of it. So there is no possibility of dropping out mid-warp in a system in between. It would need a significant amount of rejigging in the coding of the game, I understand it. But any of you guys that understand that stuff a little bit better than I do, any of you guys that are coders and that, you can feel free to drop your comments in below. Let us know how that works. But definitely number two there is interesting. Number four, abandoning a mission. Definitely something worthwhile. Just drop those missions and let us go and pick them up again at a later stage. Very annoying, very frustrating to see them there populating in your list there when you've got new missions that you want to be able to focus on. So have the option to enable mission reminders on login in the settings. Again, another interesting one, something I wouldn't have considered, but depending on how easy that would be to implement, it's not a bad idea. We don't like seeing all of these reminders of missions that we can't complete. If 4 isn't possible, then 5 certainly would be an idea. Number 6 about the filters on the missions page, like donate, attack, faction. So really, I suppose, just being able to distinguish between what type of mission you're going to do. Again, it's just a quality of life adjustment that would be quite nice, easily enough done, you'd imagine. Keep highlighted the last mission that you viewed. Certainly an interesting one there. Again, shouldn't be too difficult. That somewhere in the memory of the game, when you go back in, it's going into the last mission that you were looking at, but not a priority, I wouldn't say, not something to high on the list. And remember the open-closedness of the slide-out sub-menus when leaving the app. Again, that's similar, I think, to number 7. I let Thaylor get into that a little bit more himself, because I'm not 100% certain what he means there. Have more $20 or less offers for us per folk. Again, that's something that's been called for, the cheaper options for people that aren't big spenders, the non-whales out there. And have Prime-only offers, for example, Prime Protection for $20. So a number of ideas there, guys. Very worthwhile piece from Thaylor, and I look forward to hearing some of your thoughts on those first number of points. So the next section we're looking at here, guys, is to allow the admirals and commodores to set alliance-wide messages in their inbox. We're a chatty alliance, blah blah blah. We go into the history. Excellent idea there. It's been talked about before. I think I talked with Anisius about this as well, and a number of other people. I want to get Anisius in to talk about specific ideas that she's got around the game as well. But for now, we're looking at Thaylor's ideas, and that's number 11 here, along with number 2. I would rank very, very high in terms of something that would be needed in the game. It's done in other games. Why is it not in our game? The leaders and the officers of an alliance being able to message everybody is a common enough concept. Scopely need to catch up and implement this as soon as possible. So number 12 is to show the last login for Alliance members. Again, it's in other games. It would add a little bit to the quality of life of organising alliances, I suppose, and rooting out inactive members or whatever, but not high enough on the list of priorities for it to be better than number 11 or number 2, but certainly useful. Show the event progress for Alliance members working at Galaxy ranking, so you're really able to, I suppose, distinguish between what Alliance members are active and how they're performing within your alliance. Could cause some rows. I don't know if it would be the best idea in the long run, but certainly something worth considering. Have an A to Z filter for the Alliance members, so you can look at them alphabetically. Obviously another quality of life thing, very, very easy to implement, you would imagine, and makes an awful lot of sense. So give us an option to permaban a player from an alliance so that they can't change their name and reapply. Fair enough, yeah, I would agree with that. Adding a ban list for each Commodore Admiral is difficult as we rotate officers. 100%, no problem with number 15. Make changing names more difficult. First one free, next one $5. I completely disagree with this here. Charging people to change their names was a ridiculous idea. No offence, Thaylor, but I would not go down this road. I get that it's frustrating that people can change names, but 15 is a much more practical way of dealing with the name changes than with number 16 here. The whales would just exploit that anyway. People would exploit it, but I think that the name changes add a little bit of a different dynamic to the game. It allows us to let bygones be bygones with some players and not forget, and people to I suppose refresh their in-game identities, given that some people role play within the game, and that's perfectly fine in my book. So 16's a no for me. Number 17, show the last 3 alliances when a player is joining an alliance, and how long for each. Again, I don't know how practical that would be, but a nice enough idea, I suppose, to be able to protect against players hopping around alliances or people spying on alliances and things like that. Number 18, finer controls for notifications. This is quite a detailed one. Your base attack, your ship attack, depleting a node, all the different notifications that we get. And special offers, he says already requested. Presumably that's with support, but we let Thaylor get into that a little bit more himself when we get a hold of him. So the next chunk of suggestions we're looking at here from Thaylor, guys. Number 19, remember in-system and galaxy view zoom levels. Another quality of life suggestion, not high on my list of priorities. I don't mind the zoom level. It's a bit difficult in BlueStacks, but on the phone it's alright. But again, that's something maybe you'd put in the settings that you could switch on and off to allow us to choose whether we want that to happen or not. Number 20 is the event calendar. Now presumably Thaylor's talking about a medium to long-term calendar, not just the short-term calendars that we see. Presumably he's aware of the splash screen calendars that we do get upon logging into the game, that's telling us what's happening over the next couple of days or the next week or so with an event. More than likely what Thaylor's talking about there is a more longer term calendar of what's happening next month and the month after, so we can anticipate that and get into that. Scopely are a little bit cagey about all of their information. The NDAs that the other content creators have signed shows that they're not allowed to come out with the information before Scopely actually announce it and release it. So they're a bit cagey about releasing anything that they're going to do down the line. So I don't know how much that will be looked at or accepted. It's certainly something that the player base would want, but I don't know if Scopely would go with that. But we can live and we can hope all we want on that one. Number 21 is allow Alliance members to bump another Alliance member off a node. I get the sense of the practical advantage of being able to do that there, but I'd completely disagree with bringing that into the game. It would be crazy there for Alliance members to be bumping each other off the nodes. It would cause more chaos within alliances. There'd be more rows within alliances for that over that. It's one thing fighting with other alliances and wars happening with other alliances when you knock them off a node accidentally, or somebody chances their arm and is a wee bit greedy. If that started happening within your own alliance, it would just cause chaos. I think that for me is a bad idea. Number 22, allow us to interrupt the repair and only have the ship proportionally repaired resources are not refunded. Okay, so cancelling essentially your repair with it only partly done. I don't know about not refunding the resources in such a situation. Maybe a percentage of the resources would be refunded, but again, a quality of life idea there that would remain to be seen for me as to how effective it would be, but certainly on the surface a nice enough idea. Allow us to dock in an alliance member's empty dock. They can undock us and repair us at will, and undocking while repairing will only partially repair proportionality. Okay, so the idea there, I'm thinking, is that we can go to an alliance member's dock and they can repair our ship for us or kick us out of their dock and all of that there. It would certainly be a nice idea to be able to dock it in an alliance member's station, and and maybe just a safe haven away from the action temporarily and stuff like that. Not a bad idea. For us to be able to repair our ships in an alliance member's dock is a lovely idea. For them to be able to repair our ships, I don't know. Again, that could be exploited very easily, but not a bad idea. Captain's log, work like chat to yourself. Yeah, having a log there for each player to be able to put in notes and different things like that there. No problem with that. Allows us to swap officers on a ship while undocked. Move an officer from below decks to captain. Teleporting officers between nearby ships would be nice. Now, definitely the teleporting officers between nearby ships would be nice. It'd be nice. I remember playing a game called Heroes of Might and Magic. If anybody remembers Heroes of Might and Magic, you used to be able to send your hero out with the troops, and if you had another hero out in the field, they would meet in the field, and you'd be able to transfer troops between each other and different items and stuff like that. There, it'd be nice if we could send one ship to meet another ship in another system and unload our cargo or unload our officers and whatever else into that. So that's definitely a nice idea. Swapping out the officers on the ship while it's undocked, I suppose that's a little bit like the wee trick of swapping out a ship while it's tearing up. The same principle could apply there. Show us systems with available missions in the pop-up for system. Absolutely great idea. Move the banner that displays kill and event progress down so we can go to character maybe. Not sure what Thaylor's on about there. I'll let him explain that one. Number 28, in the profile for a player, show who invited them, visible to all officers. Okay, not such an issue for us in HOM, maybe the odd time, but who has invited a player? It could be an interesting one for Alliance leaders maybe. And allow us to sell ships for faction credits to the Ferengi. I don't know why it would necessarily have to be the Ferengi, but okay. Keep our shipyards running 24/7. The envoys they can make. Okay, so yeah, so farming lower level blueprints, getting loads of envoys, for example, and selling them on to another faction or just in a store in the shop. Great idea. It's been called for before. This would certainly be one I would like to see, is selling our old ships in whatever way it is, dismantling them, scrapping them, getting some resources back for them. That kind of thing would definitely be useful for those of us with multiple versions of different ships. But again, the Ferengi faction, like, that's really calling for a faction to be introduced so that we can trade in the ships. I don't think we need the Ferengi for that, but certainly the Ferengi coming into the game would be nice to see for these kind of trading, cheeky trading kind of things. So a nice idea with the Ferengi there from Thaylor. And at number 30, guys, we're looking at allow us to buy RSS tokens, limit per day, or maybe tied to faction. New Ferengi faction. So Thaylor's obviously got a wee bit of a hard up for the Ferengi faction, which is okay. But allow us to buy RSS tokens. There was, when they brought in the tokens initially, if people remember, we were able to trade our existing resources for tokens and store them up. I'd be happy with that. I'd be happy with reaching, say, 1 million tritanium and then turning that into a token and protecting it and hiding it away so it can't be stolen. To be able to buy RSS tokens, yeah, okay. How would we do that? Is that in a market system? I'm not sure. Talk to Thaylor in more detail about that one, maybe. New galaxy leaderboards, like hostile ships destroyed, damage done to hostiles, missions completed, resources mined. I think some of you founder servers guys, or the guys certainly from server 1, might be able to talk in a wee bit more detail about this and leave a comment below if so, or come into Discord and remind me. I think we used to have other tabs like that way back in the early version of this game where we had the leaderboards of who done what kind of damage to ships. We had raiders. I seem to remember raider was a category all unto itself that you'd rank on the raider board, things like that. So something in that there, but we let Thaylor explore that a bit more himself, I suppose. A new bank building that would be a latinum generator. Well, the bank is there already. It's at level 50. It's there. It's been there a while. But I'm not sure if Thaylor's calling there for a bank to be made available at a lower level, or that there would be a separate type of bank that's purely a latinum generator. It remains to be seen what the existing bank is gonna be. But a latinum generator would make more sense. For me, a bank is where you invest the latinum, and after a period of time, you get a greater amount of latinum back. Something like that would be how a bank would work in my mind in a game like this. A new market building to allow us to buy items with other items. So again, this has been called for. The market is there. This has been called for a long time, that the market will be brought in at a lower level. Maybe this is something we can look forward to in the new update in a couple of days. But certainly the market is something we've been called for. Again, I'm going to reference Heroes of Might and Magic, if anybody remembers that game. You used to have a little market building in it where you could trade at a low level. You could trade 4 of one resource for 1 of another resource, and then as you upgraded your marketplace, that went to 3-to-1 ratio and a 2-to-1 ratio then. So you were exchanging 2 items for 1 item, and then it was a 50-50 trade-off. You were getting 1 for 1 then when you were maxed out. A nice idea, certainly something up there on my list of priorities in terms of what I would like to see coming into the game. Be able to independently repair a ship on each dock that is unlockable by research. Certainly a good idea. People have called before for us to be able to repair more than one ship at a time. How many dry docks you've got would certainly be a nice way of determining how many of those you could do. A nice idea there. Be able to remove officers from a ship while it is repairing. Again, the same idea, I suppose, as tearing up and all of that. We touched upon a little bit of that before. In the pop-up for Power Steel, Titanium, Dilithium, shows the actual protected amount under the totals already proposed. Okay, so that's not a bad idea. A very simple thing you would imagine. Presumably already proposed. He's sent that in to Scopely already. Have a King of the Hill event. Some kind of Klingon Champions event where you go through a wormhole and fight against players your same ops level. Not a bad idea. Some of my older videos I had mentioned events like, I hadn't mentioned specifically King of the Hill, but I had mentioned like Capture the Flag and Deliver the Package and stuff like that. King of the Hill is just another type of event that could be brought in. No problem. I don't see why it would necessarily have to be Klingon Champions. It could be any title on it. But certainly going through a wormhole, fighting against players your ops level from other servers, we've discussed those sort of ideas before. Add a leaderboard versus people your same ops level. Again, I think there was something like that in the older version of the game where you could look at people that were more or less your similar level range. But a nice wee touch again, not a high priority, but a nice wee touch if it were to be brought in. In the battle reports, include the state of the mine while mining and how long it has been zero if empty. Again, I don't know how necessary this would be. It's a nice idea. Obviously, Thaylor has reasons for suggesting this. It's not something I've heard a lot of. But, you know, we let Thaylor thrash that one out a wee bit more himself. I don't see the necessity of that. And at 40 here, and the last one that Thaylor has in this particular post is add Romulans hunt Klingons, Federation hunt Romulans, and Klingons hunt the Federation events. So we suppose we have similar events to that already, but I think what he's talking about there more specifically is that the events are geared towards taking advantage of the ships and the officers that you've got who have abilities specific towards defeating Romulans or Federation or whatever. So again, that's something we'll get Thaylor in to talk about. Hopefully we'll get the man himself in, guys, sooner rather than later to chat about this. People have busy lives, myself included. It'd be nice to get this event out of the way, and then the new content coming in, and then maybe sit down with Thaylor and do a review on that, and see what exactly here could be implemented in the shorter term from these ideas that he's proposed to us. And like always, guys, review this video yourselves, leave your own thoughts and comments below. Let me know if you think some of these are good ideas, bad ideas. Let me know in particular what you think are the priorities out of this. There's a handful of them there that I would go for myself as a real list of priorities, like a top 5 or a top 6. I might do a wee video on that in the near future. This video is kind of taking its place because there's so much in this that Thaylor has offered me. And once again, a credit to Thaylor and all of you guys for sitting down, doing your homework, nerding out on all of this here, and throwing ideas out of me that I can then go and share with the rest of the community. So a thank you to all you guys that continue to contribute, like and subscribe and all of that kind of stuff, guys. And I will catch all of you guys very, very shortly in another video. Cheers.